Hey everyone, welcome to Geeking Out, the podcast in which we dive into the career journeys of some of the amazing humans in tech and geek out on topics like software development, DevOps, observability, reliability, and everything in between. I'm your host, Adriana Villela, coming to you from Toronto, Canada. And geeking out with me today, I have Justin Garrison. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Super excited to have you on. And where are you calling from today?
Outside of Los Angeles, I just saw a stat yesterday. In the United States, one out of every 34 people live in Los Angeles County.
Really?
That's crazy, right?
That
Like that
is.
is one out of every nine, I think it was, live in California in the United
Wow.
States. All the United States. It's like there are 50 states, and one out of nine live in California, and one out of every 34 live in LA County.
Damn, that is
And
trippy.
it's a populated place.
It is. It is. Have you been in the LA area like your whole life, or?
I've lived in Southern California my whole life. Yeah,
Oh,
I've
nice.
lived further, like closer south, like near San Diego, and a little further north. I was in like Pasadena for a while, but I've been like within I don't know, like a 2 hour radius, LA driving, my whole life.
Nice, nice. That's so cool. Ah, the sun, the beach.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I miss. I'm originally from Rio, and I only lived there a combined total of 6 years of my life, and it wasn't even six consecutive. But I still like have such a deep connection to like the beach that every time I go to a city that has a beach, I feel like I'm home.
What? Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm a bad Southern California resident because I don't even like the beach that much.
Oh
Like,
no.
especially Southern California beaches, like they're just really crowded and hot. Like
Oh
going to Hawaii, going somewhere else, like a more tropical beach, like
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
it's fantastic. LA beaches are it's like I said, it's a lot of people here. It's always
Really?
crowded,
Oh
and
no.
there's often a lot of trash, and it's just kind of like, okay,
Ugh.
this is an LA beach, right? And
Oh,
there are
that's
nice
so
ones. There
messy.
are, you can go a little further up the coast and stuff like that. Go out to Santa Barbara or something like that. Plenty of nice beaches, but they're not the easy ones to get to. And
Right,
so
right.
the ones that I often go to are just like, okay, we're going to the beach for the kids. We're going to be there for 3 hours, and then we're leaving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that see, as much as I like the beach, there's one thing I absolutely hate, which is like cleaning off the sand from my feet after I'm done. It
For the
just
next 3 days. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like it's such a sensory thing for me. It bothers
Yeah.
me so much. Like we're on vacation in Portugal, and I was good until like we left the beach, and my husband and my daughter are just like walking around in their flip flops with sand on their flip flops. I'm like, no. So I'm like the prissy one, like
Yeah.
getting the getting the sand off my feet. I'm like, I'm the foot princess. Yeah, that's my own gripe. Only gripe with beaches is the sand on your feet part. All right. Well, we're going to start off with some icebreaker questions. So, are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Question one: are you a lefty or a righty?
Well, right-handed mostly. Um, I have wrist issues, so I do more things with my left hand than it's not natural to me, but I do
Oh,
it.
so but you've trained yourself to.
I've trained myself. I can shoot a basketball with my left hand.
Oh, cool.
I used to be able to type and write with my left hand, one-handed typing, because I had a
Yeah.
broken wrist for a while. But yeah, no,
Oh,
it's
damn.
generally righty.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I have learned some things.
That's cool. That's cool. It's I always find it kind of a fun brain exercise to do that. Like I'm left-handed, and I learned how to play squash right-handed. I'm okay
Mm,
at it. Just for funsies, just to see like, hey,
yeah,
what's it like? Although I do find being a lefty playing against a right-handed person always throws them off.
yeah. I've actually been trying to learn how to play hockey left-handed,
Ah,
because you get a lot of advantages being on that side of the goalie, when you're
right,
shooting and whatnot.
right.
So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How's that going? Is it
Not
working?
well. No.
Ew.
I haven't played a full game left-handed.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel comfortable switching like in mid-game, like for one or two, like, hey, I'm just gonna try to take the puck or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like I'm not playing full games with it yet. I'm still trying to get used to just like shooting and general handling. Yeah.
Is there like a left-handed hockey stick?
Yeah.
This shows me how shows
Yeah.
you how
Yeah.
much I know about
Yeah,
hockey.
the curve goes the other way. My
Yeah,
youngest
okay.
my youngest son is left-handed, and he
Oh,
started
cool.
playing hockey, and so he plays right-handed, which is really
Oh.
interesting. And I learned recently that a lot of the professionals, even the left hand, they'll play left-handed because of the goalie advantage of shot speed
Oh.
on the goalie side. And
Yeah.
also when you play, you have like a slight advantage on like better handling if your right hand, like if your dominant hand is on top of the stick, then
Yeah.
you have better handling but a weaker shot. So there's like trade-offs.
Oh,
But it's
interesting.
something that I've been learning about. I've been playing for like 2 years now, and it's just like I'm kind of learning all the ins and outs and trying to get better. So
Cool. Wait, playing left-handed for 2 years or playing
just, no,
hockey?
just hockey for 2 years. I
Oh.
play roller hockey. I'm in Southern
Oh,
California,
cool.
so it's not on ice.
Ah, yeah. I'm in awe whenever I see the hockey players skate around because, like, me on ice skates, I'm like, my goal is to not fall.
Yeah,
I can get from A to B. I can stop ish thanks to friction.
yeah,
But
or
yeah,
walls. Walls also
or
help.
walls, or walls. I'm
Yep.
I'm definitely better on inline skates, and even that is like touch and go.
Yeah.
But I can break on inline skates, so that's an advantage.
Yes.
Okay, next question. Do you prefer iPhone or Android?
I don't have a preference. I for the longest time I went back and forth. Every time my phone was due for an upgrade, which in the United States is usually every 2 years, you had contracts for a long time.
Right,
I would
right.
switch. I would switch back and forth, and I did that for probably 8 or 9 years. And I just went back and I just got back and forth. Let's see what the other operating system has. I honestly like I use an iPhone today mostly for the camera and the fact that I don't really care for Samsung's software on Android, which is the
Yeah,
dominant Android platform in the United States. I think the Android hardware is phenomenal these days. Like they have such interesting ideas with foldables and all this stuff that you just can't do on an iPhone. The software ecosystem is good enough for what I'm doing, and somewhat better on Android because I use G Suite for work and for personal stuff, and it's just the
yeah,
integration is so much better there. So
that's
that
true.
sort of stuff is better. The AI, the assistant, all that other stuff on Android is better, I think, than Siri and what Siri can do. Shortcuts is just the most potential garbage application I've ever used on iOS. Whereas Android has a bunch of cool things like that. So it's like I love a lot of things about Android. I've been on an iPhone for my last two phones.
Ah,
And that's I think now just lock in because we have my oldest is at the phone age, so like the hand me
yeah,
down is cycle has kicked in, so the lock in of family hand me downs and the iOS ecosystem for like find my phone and
yeah.
like locating kids and AirTags and all that sort of stuff has been lock in that I don't like. If I found a cross-platform and I use tiles and stuff and they were just not as
Yeah,
good, the networks
yeah,
weren't as good and all this stuff, and so like the actual benefit of the Find My network is now probably the biggest thing that locks me into iOS, but I really like Android.
yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. I have to agree. I like the Find My stuff. Like the only reason why I let my daughter have a phone when she was younger was when she started coming home from school by herself. I think she was around like 9.
Hmm.
I'm like, I'll be okay with that as long as I know where you're at.
Yeah. And that's like my oldest when he was I think 10, maybe 11, we got him a Nokia flip phone
Yeah,
and just glued an AirTag on the back. Like it was
nice.
just like,
Yeah.
here you go, we can find you and you don't need distractions. You can call us,
Yep.
you can text us. That's all he needed. And it was
Yep.
great.
Yep. Yep.
It's now but now he's getting to the age of like, hey, I actually want a smartphone. I'm like, yeah, I
The
know.
FOMO. I miss flip phones though. Like, I honestly, there's nothing like the feeling of like flipping your phone open, or like I had an LG chocolate for a bit, and
The
that was like
chocolate
the
man. That's
slider phone, and it was like the
yeah, yeah.
cutest little phone.
I was a huge fan of WebOS. If you remember WebOS, the Palm Pre
Oh
and the
yeah, yeah,
Pixie
yeah.
and the Veer, and they had this whole line, and they had the slide up keyboards, but you also could answer phone calls by sliding up. So it was kind of like a flip phone feel. You could
Nice.
hang up by closing it.
Yeah, yeah.
The homebrew hacker space around WebOS was huge. There were so many people that had so much cool innovations around it, and it was all HTML and JavaScript, like all of the front end, all the apps, which had some downsides, right? There's like some things were
Yeah.
slower, more resources, all that sort of stuff. But it was so much easier to get into it. So I was part of their dev program back in the day, and I loved WebOS. Like all the things that like new features coming out now are basically just like WebOS features from
Right.
however long ago. But I like the hardware wasn't great, but I loved the feel of it. It was small. Um, Yeah, the operating system was minimal, and so it wasn't a huge distraction. But it also did things like integrated chats, where all of your chat apps were one. They had a thing called Synergy, so like
Yeah.
Skype and AOL and Messenger and SMS all went to the same place, and it was one integrated app that like you had a contact and you added their Skype name or
Yeah.
their AIM name, and it would just go, oh yeah, you have one chat with your wife. Doesn't matter where she talked to you from. It's all one thread. And I'm like, this is
That's
beautiful. And
nice.
we're kind of getting back to some of that with like things like Beeper and Matrix and things like we're reinventing Trillium from back in the day, if you remember
Oh
that.
my God, I love Trillium. Oh, yeah, and you mentioned
Yeah.
AIM. I'm like, holy crap,
Yeah.
that brings
AIM
back
and Pigeon and
memories.
Trillium. Like people these days don't know the struggle. They
I
don't know, like
know.
we have, all these individual platforms. Like, yeah, we had it back then too. It was just
Yeah.
different.
Do you
Everyone was like,
remember ICQ?
I had an ICQ number, but I was really late to ICQ. I remember my roommate in college had like a 5-digit ICQ number, and it was like, dude,
Oh,
you
damn.
have been around for a while.
Wow. Yeah, I was a later joiner too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Those were the days. Yeah, yeah. It's funny how much it's evolved. I was listening to a podcast that was talking about like the fall of like AOL, and they were talking about AIM and how it was retired in like 2017.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, and that like that was the way that we would communicate with each other before
Yeah.
like text messages were super popular. Like
Even
I
just even just the notion that you could be away
yeah.
is fascinating for today.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's the other thing that they were talking about. Like when you're away, you're away. No one can send you messages, and it's like, what?
Yeah, my son was asking me, he's like, what is offline? I'm like, well, like you weren't on the internet. Like, what do you mean? Like, how could you be offline? I'm like, whoa, like you don't think about like,
Yeah.
what does it take? Like right now it's like, I could travel to the mountains and I still have cell signal, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
offline is a choice. It's
Yeah.
not the like defaults. And typically back then, right? Like was offline was like, you had to go make a choice to be online. And
Yeah.
if you did not say I'm going to sit at this computer in my family computer room at this desktop, right? Like we had a computer room,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was you had to make the choice to be online. And now we're online all the time, and
That's
it's just like,
true.
hey, let's maybe, for myself, I try to change that
Yeah.
dynamic occasionally.
Yeah. 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 Every so often, like I try when I'm on vacation, for example, I try to not check like my socials, especially the ones that are really like tied to work related stuff. Like I don't I don't want
Yeah,
that.
I went on a work trip, and my wife was dropping me off at the airport. As I get out of the car, grab my bags, I get inside, my phone was on the seat. This is a work trip. I'm going for work. We're traveling for a few days. We're visiting customers, going to like an event or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'm like, my ticket's on there. My ticket's on my phone.
Oh shit.
It's like I have my ID, but my ticket's on
Yeah.
there, and I can't call her now because I don't have my phone. Like my
Oh
phone's
no.
like I couldn't tell her to turn around. So I was like, okay, what can I do? Like how do I get around? Like, and it actually ended up being like it's a super memorable trip because I was offline. Like not by choice necessarily, but I was when I didn't have a phone. I didn't check anything. I had a laptop still, so I literally like I could like message her from my laptop. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
by the way, my phone's in the car. Don't worry about it. I'm on the plane. I'm gone. It's cool. Like I'll get
Yeah.
it later. If you need to talk to me, you have to email me, and I will check it at night.
Oh
Right,
my
and like
god.
that's it. And that's like I will check it when I'm not at the conference. But like just that trip was fascinating because constantly I'm standing around doing nothing. I'm like, what should I do? I look at my hand? Like, what should I be doing? Right? Like I don't. And so like I just talk to people, and like I'm extroverted enough that I'm like I don't care about walking up to someone saying like, hey, how's it going? Right?
Yeah.
But oftentimes I look around like everyone else is on their phone. I'm like I can't even do that right now. And so
That is so
that trip
true.
was fascinating. I want to do it again intentionally because then I would actually like print out my boarding passes and stuff and have some
Yeah.
things prepared. Because that was a little bit of a concern of like, oh, I don't know how to get home now because I have to check into my flight and they only have an app and they don't have like the website doesn't work or whatever. So there were things that if I prepared better, I would have enjoyed it a little more.
Yeah.
A couple times I'm like, I don't know how to do this now. But in general, like things still work in an offline manner and they always
Yeah.
should work in an offline manner. Maybe, it's maybe not the most convenient, but it should be an option.
Yeah, absolutely.
QR
That
codes are everywhere now and I
yeah.
can't do anything without a phone that has a camera that can open a web page.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It's wild when you take things like that for granted. Like a couple of years ago, I remember, I want to say it was 2022. One of our big mobile phone service providers in Canada like had an outage, And it wasn't just, I think it was like not just mobile. I think it was also internet. So, and we use them for both mobile and internet. Holy crap, couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And the only, and I had to get a message out to work to like let them know what
Tell
was
them. Yeah.
going on. And fortunately at the time, like I live close to a subway station, like it's like less than a 5-minute walk from my house, and they had Wi-Fi at the station. So
Mm.
I tethered onto the Wi-Fi standing
Yeah.
outside the station so that I could get a Slack message out
Yeah.
to my coworkers and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to do anything today. And and I went for a lovely walk, and it was
Yeah.
just delightful. It was like, yeah, it's so great to be disconnected, and
Yeah.
yeah. But it was a little terrifying though initially, like when we woke up and like there was no cell signal, and the first thought is like, okay, did something really bad happen?
Right.
And then
You have no
once
news. You have no other. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, where's the damn radio? I don't even have like a physical radio, so trying to. So then I think we had to like go to our car to turn on
Oh,
the radio and figure out what
yeah.
the hell's going on. So just trippy.
That's one thing living in Southern California my whole life is I've always had an earthquake kit. Like it's
Oh,
just like a thing. Like we have an
yep,
earthquake kit that's like
yeah, yeah,
I have a radio that doesn't need batteries, right? Like I can wind it
yeah,
and actually
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
get like hey, but I also like I have solar panels and batteries on my house now too. So it's like
yeah,
we're like as prepared as we can be for some of this stuff. But it's
yeah,
like yeah, we have a cabinet full of water bottles. Like
yeah,
if something happens and we need to be 4 days here or whatever, right? Like we have a family of 4, we have cats, we have things that need to still stay alive,
yeah,
and we would
yeah.
like those things to stay alive.
Ideally.
Yeah.
No, that's definitely worthwhile. Yeah, I find every time something like that happens, like we don't have earthquakes here really. Like you feel like a rumbling here and there, but we do get some nasty ice storms sometimes
Mm,
in the winter that take down power lines,
yeah.
and so we've been lucky, knock on wood, to not be affected like that. But I've had some family members who were like without power for days, and
Yeah.
what do you those types of things kind of have you thinking like, oh, I actually need to have some stuff at hand in case, things go south.
Right. As soon as that happens, then all of the toilet paper at the store is gone. All of the batteries are gone. All of the things that
Right.
you might want to go, oh, just go to the store and get it, right? Like we all living through COVID, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
every shelf was empty for weeks, and people were
Yeah.
like, actually, this isn't good.
Yeah. Hey, next question. Do you prefer Mac, Linux, or Windows?
100% Linux. I I guess I've been my I didn't get a computer until I was in college, like my own computer. We had like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
family computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think my junior and senior year we got it because our typewriter broke, and I had to type papers. That was the only
I
reason we had a
I
computer.
remember having a typewriter, so
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
I 100% had a typewriter. It broke in high school, and then we got a computer from like a used one from a friend, and like I didn't know how to do anything on it. I took typing classes so I could type my papers, but my first computer didn't come with an operating system, and it was like a beige box, no name something. There was no operating system. I'm like, what do I do? Like I don't have money. I'm in college. Like I don't know how to do anything on this. And
Yeah.
and right around this was it would have been 2002, so it was a little before Ubuntu. But I was running Linux. I don't remember what it was. Probably Slackware or something like that. But I just
Mhm.
like someone in my IT shop or whatever was like, "Hey, here's a CD. Go install it." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And it's like, all right. And so I used it, and I was like, I was just a broke college student, and I didn't know what else to do. And some people were like, "Oh, you should just go pirate Windows." I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like I literally this is my first computer. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what you mean. And so yeah, I just kind of like I learned Linux, and then I learned like benefits of it, and I had Windows for a while. I've tried Mac over the years,
Yeah.
various times. I'm like, oh, everyone says it's the best thing ever. And I tried switching 3 or 4 times in my past. Every time I hate the operating system. Like it doesn't make sense to me. It feels kind of sluggish, and it's different enough from things that I manage, like Linux servers and stuff as a
Yeah.
sysadmin and whatnot, that I'm like, oh, it's just weird. Like there's things that just feel off, and I don't like it. And so every time I switched, I always switched back, or I left it as like a secondary computer or backup or something. But I've been using Linux as my primary operating system since 2002.
So you are hardcore Linux user.
I just didn't do anything else,
Grown
right?
up
Like,
using
I
Linux, basically.
yeah, yeah. I
That's
mean,
so
I
cool.
did use Windows for a while, and I was actually an admin for Windows at a
Mhm.
university for quite a while. So it's like, but I I still hate it. Like I didn't like
Yeah.
it. It was just like, oh, I can do all this stuff on it, but I can do a lot more stuff on Linux. And so I usually had a Windows VM on
Yeah.
Linux to manage all the stuff.
When I had my my dedicated Linux box, I had a Windows VM because I had a BlackBerry at the time, and the only way
Oh yeah, yes, there you go.
yeah, and the only
Sync and
way to
everything.
sync
Yeah.
that was with
Yeah.
Windows, because you couldn't do that. I was using Ubuntu, and yeah, I didn't even know Linux existed until university. Actually, I didn't even know Unix existed until university, because up until then I'd been using like Windows. I started with Windows 3.1, then Windows 95, and then I go to university, and in the computer lab, I think they had these like Solaris workstations,
Yeah.
and I'm like sitting there. I'm like, what the fuck is
Yeah.
this?
Why is this different?
I
Yeah.
have no idea what this is. And someone's like, type in pine. I'm like, what does that do? That gets you your email. I'm like, great. Now I can do one thing.
Yeah. I remember someone I worked in a computer lab fixing computers before I had a computer in college. Like it was one of my
Mhm.
first jobs there. And I was just like, hey, I just need a job. And they're like, oh, we work in help desk. And they're like, oh, we'll go like scan viruses on these machines. I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, well, here's a document. You just read it and follow the steps. I'm like, okay. We were putting this CD called Knoppix.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, what the heck is this Knoppix thing? Like, what is this? They're like, well, it's a Linux distro. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, well, it runs all from a CD. I'm like, I don't know any of the words you're saying to me right now. And I'm like, but it's fascinating that I always assumed that like these were special things that could only be built by certain people.
Yeah.
And just the fact that like this existed for free and it was the source was available and all this stuff, like, you know, galaxy brain sort of moment of like,
Yeah.
what else is free? What else
Yeah.
could you do with this stuff? And all of that like starts happening. And like that's when I just started like, oh, the only thing this costs is my time.
Yeah.
And for me as a college student, I had lots of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I could invest all the time in the world and not spend any money because I didn't have the money, but I had
Yeah.
all the time in the world to learn it. And that's kind of what I did. And I just kept learning it and figuring out more and more things, and plenty of days without a cell phone, without a smartphone, trying to fix Wi-Fi drivers, you know, on various laptops. And I almost always had like a used secondhand computer. I don't think I got a
Yeah.
new computer for, you know, like a decade or something. It was always some like, oh yeah, this is great. Like I'll take it. I'll run it. I'll figure it out. And installing Linux on pretty much everything I could touch.
That's awesome. So Linux was like your gateway drug.
It definitely was an eye opener for like what software was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't grow up with a computer. I didn't grow up with software. I didn't know. I was like, I wasn't a programmer when I was 5. I was outside digging holes in the ground. Like I just like we went outside, we dug ditches. It was like, oh, this is fun. We're gonna play in a hole now. That's literally what I did as a kid. And then I got in cars in like teenage high school years. And I,
Yeah.
for the longest time, I loved cars. I loved working on cars. I loved driving cars. I loved, you know, going to car shows. I still take my kids to car shows. They're like, yeah, we don't want to go. They're like, no, it's fun. Look at this. You know, this is like, you don't know, this is an '87, you know, Toyota, like whatever. Like it's like I love cars, and I was going to college, but I thought I'd be a mechanic or a driver or
Yeah.
doing like performance tuning or something like that, because it was just like, oh, I like cars. I didn't know software was a option. I didn't know technology was like a thing until like kind of getting into that. So yeah, understanding and learning Linux and then realizing like what Linux was actually used for, or what people
Yeah.
paid for it, was definitely an eye opener to like, oh, I don't have to work on cars.
So what did you study in college?
Um, my major for my undergrad is math physics, mostly because I didn't like everything else. I went and I didn't know what the heck I was gonna do. I was like, they started me at the bottom tier math class because had
Yeah.
no math background. And like, well, you're starting in like algebra 1 or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like really really low. And I went through and I was like, I was just trying every class I could.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you know what? After I had to declare a major for my junior year, I was going into my junior year without a major. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing still. But I was like, but I know what I don't like. I don't like
Yeah.
writing papers. I don't necessarily like reading reports. I'm terrible at art and music. Business is super boring to me. So it kind of narrowed down to like, okay, I like a science. I like the sciences.
Yeah.
What do we have available? I was not good at chemistry. Chemistry
Yeah.
was just not, it didn't agree with me for
Yeah.
various
Yeah.
reasons. And so I was like, okay, well, I do like, I like physics. I'm not very good at math. Like the math is still kind of a weak point for me. So it's like, I really like this physics stuff. My favorite class was like, I jumped into one called statics, and it was like my
Oh
first
yeah.
class that actually like had like trigonometry. Like I had never taken trigonometry.
Oh no
I
way.
didn't know, but like I threw me in this class. It was like a mid-level physics class, and I loved it. I was like, this is fascinating. Like you actually
Yeah.
are practically applying math to like real world
Yeah,
problems
yeah,
of like bridge design, and all this stuff. I'm like, I love that. And I'm like, how do I do more of this? And
yeah.
so then they're like, okay, well, here's your options. And it was like one major that would let me graduate in time. And I'm like, cool, because I don't want to be here for 5 years. So I picked math physics was my undergraduate, and I have a major master's degree in information technology, which is like a generic. They didn't really have a CS
Yeah,
course, so it was almost like a sysadmin sort
yeah.
of like you touched everything. We wrote some assembly, we did a lot with
Very cool.
Java, we did a bunch of database tuning and management. So it was like this generic kind of systems sort of like
Yeah.
idea, but I was like my master's was from the same university.
Oh, cool.
It was like 8 years later, but it was
Yeah,
yeah, I got it in IT.
cool. And was that like a 1 or 2 year program?
It was supposed to be a 2 year online program. I did
Yeah.
over 4 years because I was only taking one at a time. Partially because I
Okay.
was working at the university, so I got the class for free. Like the one
Oh, nice.
one unit, one class per semester was free, and I'm like, "Cool, I don't have to pay
Oh,
for it."
nice. Score.
And then when I switched out of the university, I'm like, "Oh, this is going to charge me now." So I worked at Disney, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, do you have like a education program?" And they did, and Disney actually paid more than what the university was giving me. So I finished the last year like in 6 months or whatever, because I'm like, oh
Yeah.
cool, I can pay for all the classes at once, or Disney would pay for it. So
Nice.
I finished it off, but it took me about 4 years to get the master's.
Wow. That's so cool. I so agree with you though on like when it comes to university majors, like all the stuff that you said that you didn't like, I'm
Yeah,
like, yep, can
yeah,
completely relate. Like for me too, like I have an industrial engineering degree. And I hated most things. I certainly did not see myself writing papers, reading
yeah,
stuff, interpreting what some guy decided or what we think some guy thinks he meant when he wrote a thing. Like no,
right.
not for me, not for
And
me.
to my knowledge, I'm the only person that ever graduate with the degree I have from the university I graduated from,
No
because
way.
they only offered it for a few years. It was intended to teach for teachers. It
Oh,
was
really?
intended as it's actually a Bachelor of Arts
Yeah.
degree, because it
Oh,
was for
really?
teachers. It was for math and science and physics teachers
Yeah.
for like junior high and high school, was like kind of like
Oh,
where they targeted it. And I was like, well, it's the only one I can graduate on time with, so I'm gonna do it. And then they like got rid of it like a year or two later. I don't think anyone else ever graduated with that. So it's like I have the only one. And
wow.
it's like, yeah, like, I don't know, like it worked for me. I didn't have to take as many of the upper division math courses, and I
Yeah.
got to like pick and choose a little more variety on the physics courses. So it was a lot of fun. But it's not a straight physics degree, because I
Yeah.
didn't have to take some of the like the really hardcore
Yeah.
physics. I didn't take whatever the Newtonian physics. I didn't go into Newtonian physics
Oh, yeah, like
side
mechanics
of
and
things.
dynamics
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So what did you do like once you graduated from university? Did you like did you know what you wanted to do at that point?
I was going to work on cars. I went to university. I was the first person in my family to go to university,
Yeah.
mostly because everyone thought I'd go to armed forces. My
Hmm.
whole family, big Navy family.
Oh, no
My
way.
dad, my grandparents, my uncles, all Navy family, all through and through. I'm like, I don't really want to go to the Navy. I don't really think I want to do that. I want to go, but I have to move out of this house. Like I was like, I
Yeah.
have to move. I have to get out of my house. It was not a great place for me to be. And so I was 17 when I graduated high school, and I moved out of the house. And I was like, well, I'm going to college, and I got accepted to the university. I filled out all the FAFSA paperwork for like grants and whatnot, and we didn't make much money, so I got all of them approved, and so it basically was going to pay for half of my tuition and room and board. But I need a job still. So my freshman year, I just went and I was like, I had 3 jobs. Immediately, I worked at the mailroom, I worked in the help desk, and I worked in transportation. Because
Damn.
mailroom was my morning job, transportation was my afternoon, my Tuesday Thursday afternoon job, and I wanted to work with cars, and then the IT job was my weekend job. And so I was like, hey, I need the money. Like I'm not getting money from anywhere else. Like
Yeah.
this is how we're going to do this. And I did not want to take loans.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
was like, I'm just going to do this as much as I can. I get as much money from the government as possible,
Yeah.
pay down as much as possible. And so that was like it. And so I was working at least 2 jobs the entire 4 years that I was there.
Damn.
At every point in that year, I was working at least 2 jobs on top of the, being a student.
Yeah.
And so my final year, I'd been working at the IT department for all 4 years, and they had an opening of like, hey, we have a full-time job in telecom. So I would answer switchboard for the university for a little while. But I also would manage their cell phones. And that's how I got into smartphones. was I was managing this bill of, 350, 400 cell phones,
Yeah.
and the executives had smartphones. And this was like early days of like Windows CE, like no Android, no
Oh
iOS.
my
This is
God,
like,
I remember that.
yeah. You had a BlackBerry or you had Windows CE, and
Yep,
Windows
yep.
CE was absolutely garbage, but it was the thing that my executives wanted, so they bought those. And like, we need you to support it, so they bought me one. And so I had in 2005 a smartphone,
Mhm.
and I had a Windows CE smartphone, and I was supporting the executives on it and stuff like that, and managing stuff. And that's when I learned how to program, actually, because I took some CES courses
Yeah.
that I thought I might want to do this computer science thing. I hated it. Terrible experience. But then I like, at my job, they're like, hey, this is our Verizon bill. And they would send the Verizon bill in a box. Like it was like a full on box. Here's everything. And the person before
Damn.
me is like, hey, 3 weeks out of the month, I audit the bill. And I go through lines and I find out who was using, because people would charge you for, back then they were charging you per minute, per text message,
Yep.
all these things.
Remember that?
And you had to keep a clear, like personal versus work,
Yep.
usage. So I had to go through and figure out, are you using this for work? Are you using this for personal? I had to audit the bill and see, are you spending more money? Let's get you on a plan that works, all this stuff. But I was like, this sucks. Like this job just sucks. Like we're looking at this bill, hundreds of pages. And I'm like, what if I can get like a Excel document of it? And this is early days. Like I got a
Yeah.
CSV from Verizon, and then I learned Visual Basic script. And I learned that Excel, you could automate it with Visual Basic.
Yep.
And so the thing that took, after copy and pasting a bunch of, not Stack Overflow, Experts Exchange, copy and pasting Experts Exchange
Yep.
into
Yep.
Excel. Excel was my first IDE. And I learned how to program and automate things with Excel. And I just went through. I was like, well, I want to do this better. And I took what took the person before me 3 weeks. It took me 3 hours. And I was like, cool. It would do the mail merge. It would automatically audit things. I would review it, and I just, mail those out. Send out emails.
Nice.
To them, hey, it looks like you did a bunch of text messages. You owe us $5, whatever, right? Like, it's like, it would do all the
Yeah.
calculations, all that stuff. It would do it for 3 hours. And then I would bore it out of my mind in that job, right? Like when
Yeah.
sysadmins were going to automate ourselves out of a job, and I got in trouble. Because I started like, oh, I can do whatever I want. So I started like cooking ROMs for Android on Windows mobile phones and flashing them to Android. And I was doing all this like hacking, like sort of like, oh, I got to root this phone to be able to get to this other thing. And then I started like, well, what else could I do? And I started downloading torrents. I'm like, well, I like video games. I'm going to start downloading ROMs. And I got caught downloading ROMs. And then like
Whoops.
cease and desist to the school that I was working at. And it turns out like this is, again, back in the day, my desktop computer at my desk had a public IP address. Straight
Oh,
up
yeah.
on the internet, 199 public IP. And they're like, yeah, this IP address was downloading ROMs and serving ROMs. And so you need to stop. And I was like, wow, yeah, that was, how'd they do that? That was fascinating. And I get in trouble. I end up switching jobs. So the computer technician, the manager had to come clean my computer, make sure it was off. I was like, yeah, no, I took it off. It's fine. I won't do it again. And then he offered me a job. He's like, it seems like you're bored and you're pretty good at this. You want to work on the computer side of things, like not the cell phones. I was like, yeah, actually, that sounds great. And so I worked computer stuff, managing all the school stuff. This was again after university, but I still was at the university working,
Right.
managing the classroom, stuff like that. I ended up I was there for a total of 9 years, but I was in the IT department the whole time. Ended up becoming the manager of the like computer technicians and then a sysadmin. I built our like the VDI environment, the virtual desktop environment we didn't have it at the time,
Yeah.
but we like, hey, we want to be able to re-image and deploy software to all these systems automatically, use older hardware, all this thin clients, all that stuff. So we're doing it for labs and classrooms, and I learned how to do it. I was like a Zen desktop certified
Oh my
administrator, doing Zen
God.
server,
Bringing
all
back
that stuff.
memories.
And yeah, exactly. It was like I learned all that stuff. And then we had to have someone on the sysadmin side manage it because the computer techs couldn't manage it. And so when they're like, hey, someone needs to manage it, I was like, I'll manage it. I'm like, okay, yeah, why don't you like come over to the sysadmin side? They also needed a Linux admin because their Linux admin left. And I'm like, oh, I know Linux. Like I know Linux really well. And I had been part-time writing for a
Yeah.
website called How To Geek,
Yeah.
howtogeek.com. And I was like their Linux writer for quite a while. And so it was funny because like people were telling me, they're like, oh, we use your tutorial to learn how to do this on our servers. I'm like, cool, because I didn't have it on my resume. I was
Yeah.
not a sysadmin. I didn't have any professional experience doing this, but I was sharing what I was doing publicly. I had a blog since I was 2005, right? And I was just
Awesome.
writing for myself because most of the
Yeah.
time it was like, I want to find this later. This is my documentation. I just need to
Yep.
be able to
Yep.
find what I was doing.
That's
So
my
then I started doing it.
motivation.
Yeah. And so since 2005, actually I got it in 2004. And ever since then, I have averaged one blog post a month for over 20 years.
Wow, that's
Just
impressive.
because it's just like, hey, it's a habit. It is a
Yeah.
habit for me to write something down in a public
Yeah.
way. And this is
Yeah.
where I write it down. And social media like took some of that, but
Yeah.
I still try to write the permanent things, the things I want to
Yeah.
find again, the things I want to share. Those go on my blog. And so that
Yeah.
was like my kind of gateway into like professional Linux administration. Was I didn't have a resume for it. I was only doing Windows administration. I knew some Zen server stuff, but that's kind of a unique sort of case. But I had all this Linux stuff that I was doing at home and for
Yeah.
fun, and I was running Linux. I had YouTube videos back in the day for like Myth TV. Back in the day, you had like TiVos were big, but you could
Yep.
build
Yep.
your own, and there was a free version of it called Myth TV. And so I built one in 2005, and I started like, how does this work? How does TV tuners work? I don't want to pay the cable company. I will spend 18 weekends figuring this out and not give Comcast a dime. And that was kind of, that was the motivation of just like, I have the time to invest in myself.
Yeah.
Let's learn it. Let's figure out how this works, and then share it with people, and then
That's
tell
so
people,
cool.
make videos, write blog posts, do whatever. And those sorts of things were kind of what drove into the like, you could do technology as a career. I was still after I graduated, going to the junior college next door for automotive classes, because I still thought I was going to do cars
Yeah.
for something. I was like, God, this isn't going to work out. Like, this is just a help desk job. It wasn't until I actually switched to a sysadmin that I stopped taking the car classes. I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm going to do cars for a living. I don't think I'm going to make money from that anymore. I think I can do this technology thing, this Linux
Yeah.
thing, as actually getting paid for it. And that was like the first like turning point for me, was 5 or 6 years after graduation, that I was like, okay, I think I can use this like math physics degree to some sense of like science and STEM, and then I can do this technology stuff, and doing some automation and programming. I was doing it in all those jobs, learning as needed.
That's so cool. And I have to say, like, I think I first heard about you because I stumbled upon some of your videos explaining like how Kubernetes works,
Sure.
which I love the way in which you would explain stuff because it was just so relatable. How did you get into like how do you come up with these ideas? Like what's the inspiration?
The inspiration is just me learning. It's how do I think about things?
Yeah.
And I'm a big Bill Nye the Science Guy, like fan. I loved Elton Brown for cooking. In both those cases, they're like we're going to make this entertaining and hope that you learn something.
Yeah.
We don't want to make it educational and hope you were entertained.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that's the mindset of like, how would I be entertaining in this thing? How would I make it something that's like just either silly or fun or
Yeah.
a story or whatever? And having that as the focus, and then almost everything in technology, it has some physical analogy.
Yeah.
Like we call things certain ways because they also exist in the real world.
Yeah.
Right. And there are
Yeah.
plenty of things in technology that's like, oh, we call it this because that term already exists. And,
Yeah.
and naming things is hard, but also we use from the real world all the time. And so I'm just like, well, what if it was just the real world? What if
Yeah.
this was just in real life things? How would you actually represent some of that stuff? So like the videos came from when I worked at Amazon, in 2020, I got a job at Amazon. That was my first like DevRel role. I was in the product, but like they used to travel to conferences all the time. It was just
Yeah.
conferences, travel. I'm like, I don't want to travel a lot. I have a young family. I didn't want to do it. 2020 happened. They weren't traveling anywhere.
Yeah.
And so they started a live streaming channel, and they're like, hey, we're going to start this Containers from the Couch live stream YouTube channel and just kind of go through our how-tos and workshops
Yeah.
and just learn some things. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
What does that look? So I got really comfortable doing live streams and just being on camera because I wasn't doing a lot of videos before that. And then during 2020, started watching TikTok. And I was like, wow, I learned a lot from this TikTok thing.
Yeah.
I wonder what cool things you could do to educate people in a restricted restricted format. And at
Yeah.
the time, TikTok was still only 1 minute.
Yeah.
And it was like TikTok was the only game in town, and it was 1 minute.
Yeah.
And I was like, what could I do? And so immediately I'm like, okay, let's just try something. And so I did Containers and Pods was my first. Containers versus Pods was like one of my first videos. Me and a friend, we like rented a studio, like a place. We're like, we don't know where to film this or anything. Like, we're just gonna go for half a day, and we're just gonna try to get out like 5 different shorts and see what they look like.
Yeah.
And so I did it, and I'm like, okay, well, like it wasn't super entertaining, but I like the restrictions. I like how you have to fit something super fast, and you
Yeah.
have to boil it down to one point. I can't tell you 10 things. I have to tell you one thing. And if that one thing needs to build on something else, then I have to make that video too.
Right.
And so I have to split this up, and I have to have them completely encapsulated in their own little thing. So I loved the restriction of
Yeah.
1 minute short form vertical videos, and being able to, and again, people swipe. They
Yeah.
didn't choose to click on me. They're choosing to not swipe. And
Yeah.
that is a complete different mindset of like, do I need a banner image? No, I need a first 5 seconds that are like, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like what is this? And that was kind of like the idea. And so I did those 5 videos for Haters from the Couch, and we had been running that for years. And I posted them on TikTok. YouTube had shorts at the time finally,
Yeah.
and I think LinkedIn finally had videos too.
Right.
And the first 5 videos got more videos combined than the entire live stream catalog we had for the last 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, huh, like, I think there might be something here. Like, I think
Yeah.
this is just looking at that. Like, it's not driving customers, it's not in-depth content, but it's the new place to discover things. That's the new entertainment platform for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I'm like, okay, what else could I do? How else would
Yeah.
I explain some things? And what's possible? And everyone now has 10-minute short vertical videos. I'm like, no one's sitting there for 10 minutes. I still
Oh,
try to
I
restrict myself.
can't.
1 minute is like still where I'm at. I'm like, I still want to make this as 1 minute. I did a series of how to publish a website from your home internet.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, how many videos would I need for this? Let's see. I think it ended up being 13 videos. It was
Uh-huh.
13 1-minute videos. Hey, this is how you run Nginx. This is how you find the port that's open. This is how you open it on your router. This is how you
Yeah.
create a domain name. This is like, and each one of those is just like a progression of like, I will not watch a single 10-minute video, but I will absolutely watch 10 1-minute videos.
Yep. Yep.
It's just
Yeah.
like the mindset of like, that's okay. If I feel that way, then probably other people do too. And then all the like physical objects, creativity stuff. Like, I often try to explain the technology to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're, like, and they're really smart. They need it to be something they already know, right? You have to really, everything we learn is because something else that we are familiar with, right? You can't just jump all the way to like quantum mechanics without knowing mechanics.
Yep.
Right? You
Yep.
have to, like, progress into all these things.
Yeah.
Everything we learn, I like to say that everything we learn is a lie.
Yeah.
It's just a slightly better, less, more true lie. And
So
every
true.
time you start with the like big abstraction of like, this is the biggest lie. And anyone that knows any depth around this absolutely says you are 100% wrong. I'm like, yes, I am wrong. But that's the point. It gets someone else to the next lie. And as long as we can keep progressing that and making it a little more truthful, then we can help them get to a place that and they don't have to be in-depth experts, but they can understand it a little bit more. And that was kind of my motivation behind the whole thing, was like, what's the better lie I can tell? And almost every time, like, every one of my videos that blows up is the one that has the most egregious lie.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, actually, you're wrong. And someone comes in there and they're all upset. I'm like, I know, but thanks for being here, right? Like, I'm glad you found it. Everyone else doesn't care, right? Like, the people I'm trying to reach with this lie is not you, and that's okay. Go watch my other video,
because you're using that to build onto the next thing.
Everything's built.
That's such a cool observation, because it makes me think, you mentioned that earlier that you hated like chemistry, and I loved chemistry in high school up until I got to university, and then like it just broke my brain. And I remember at one point, like, in high school, chemistry was making sense. And then my last year of high school, they're like, and by the way, all that stuff from before, it's not
Forget
really
it.
that. And I'm like, what? And that's what your comment made me think of. But I guess, how could you possibly understand that next level of chemistry without having that foundational lie?
You need the foundation you can forget.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and that's the hardest part for a lot of people to learn advanced topics, is forgetting the things they already understand and saying, actually, why would this be wrong? And being able to think outside of like, okay, under what circumstances is that no longer true?
Mm-hmm.
And changing people's mind, because you had to, they worked hard to learn that thing.
Yeah.
And now you're telling them like all that work was not worth it. Like, not really. I can bring you somewhere better if you want to put in more work. And some people don't, it's not worth the effort. They don't really care, whatever. Like, there's reasons that people stop learning in all those cases, but if they're interested and they want to go a little deeper, they can. And giving them some of that is great.
Yeah. And I also agree with you on keeping the format short and engaging, because like, for me, like I've said it many times on this podcast, I'm much more of a text over video person. And if you're going to present me with a video, it had better be a short video. And ever since like Instagram increased the length of their videos, and even YouTube shorts, I'm like, if it's a long one, I'm just like, when is this stupid thing going to end?
I'll look at that scroll bar, and if it's not going fast, I'm like, nah, I'm out.
Yeah, it's like bye
And
bye.
even I've especially during COVID time, I rethought what a conference talk would be. Because again, I
Mm,
was at DevRel at AWS. We were like, what does a conference talk look like? And I had a talk accepted for KubeCon in
hmm
2020 before COVID happened
Yeah.
and before I worked at Amazon. I was still working at Disney at the time.
Uh-huh.
And so I had pitched this as like a semi Disney talk, and it
Yeah.
ended up being a Disney talk, but you can go find it's called Infrastructure for Entertainment. And
Okay.
it was basically about all the stuff that I ran at Disney Animation and at Disney Streaming, what that looks like,
Yeah.
why the infrastructure is different, how it works. But none of it was here's a slide deck. Here, let me tell you about this thing. Like it was I was acting it out. I was
Yeah.
pretending that we were building it. And then I literally drew animations on my iPad for months. Every night I was drawing frame by frame animations that
Yeah.
were my like in between scenes. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, now I'm going to explain this thing with a really bad animation, like a really bad stick figure. But like that's like, okay, what would this look like if conference talks were more like this entertainment sort of style? I did another one called how Kubernetes ships or something like that. I forget what KubeCon that was, but I was like a news reporter, and I was like, "Hey,
Oh,
what environment should this look like? Why would we? I don't want to give you slides, but I want to tell you interesting, fun things, and I want to have fun with it. I just want to have
yeah.
a little comedy." So I did like a whole weather report about like how releases, like what is a cap in Kubernetes, and I was a weatherman in front of a green screen with a tie and everything. I'm like, this is where the cap advances, and this is like, and so like we just
Yeah.
did really silly fun with it. And then I did one more for another DevOps days, which is kind of when I stopped doing it because people were starting to go back into conferences and like the format just wasn't advancing, or at
Yeah.
least people didn't want pre-recorded talks because people didn't want pre-recorded talks the way they like a conference talk in YouTube. They
Yeah.
wanted something more entertaining.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of switched to like, well, I'm just going to do YouTube videos now. Like I don't need to have a conference talk.
Yeah.
I have a big enough audience on YouTube or TikTok or wherever that I can just do it. I don't need to go to a conference to like show them slides. How would I convert these slides to something that would be a YouTube video? And that's kind of like the format I've kind of just run with.
Nice.
I do some talks still. I don't think I'm a good in-person conference speaker. I'm not. It's like, it's really limiting. I can't do, something. I usually bring a prop just to like, for myself to like not rely
Yeah.
on slides and to show things. But in general, like, I don't think I'm that great. I was just like, I'm there sometimes, but people mostly like my short form videos because they're like, oh, that was a great 1 minute. It was really fun. I don't want to listen to this for 45 minutes.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I remember watching it was at All Things Open last year. I cannot remember for the life of me what your talk was about, but I remember being entertained. So I wanted to ask you about your time at Disney. How that came about. Was that like kind of the job you took on after working at the
After the
university, or?
university, I went to my first conference ever, first technical whatever conference that was in it's the Southern California Linux Expo.
Mhm.
Fantastic. People
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
come in
awesome.
Pasadena now. It used to be down by LAX, and I went in. I think it was 2000, must have been like 2009, 2008. And this was right when I was coming off managing cell phones, and it was a really small. Like this was still maybe a couple hundred people.
Okay.
And I'm like in the hallway and I see someone that had an iPhone. No, it must have been, it was 2008 because 2007 is when the iPhone came out. And so it was the first year like after the iPhone was out. And I hadn't seen one in person. I was like, oh, like I was managing cell phones, but I hadn't seen one in person.
Yeah.
And someone at the show had one. And I'm like, hey, cool. How do you like it? And we just started talking about it and what they were doing. Like they're just standard user. Like, oh, it's neat. But again, this is pre-app store. This is
Yeah.
not even the iPhone 3G, right? Like this is like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a Safari browser, right? It was some
Yeah.
email, it's
Yeah.
nice, right? Like it didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
But then I was just like talking to them, and turns out they're like, I was like, what do you do? Like, oh, I'm a Linux admin. Oh, that's cool. Where? Disney Animation. Like, what does that mean? Like, what does a Linux admin at an animation studio do? And he's like, well, like all the computers run Linux. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, we just started talking. I I met him there every year at the conference. Just happenstance, he was coming, I was
Yeah.
going, and every year for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I was still working at the university. Became casual acquaintance sort of friends and stuff like that. And we just like talked about what we were working on and stuff. And it turns out when I was a sysadmin, like I was implementing config management and Git for a lot of our
Yeah.
systems, like, cause this was still like SVN days. And so we were like, hey, what does it look like to have a Git server and all this stuff? And so like we were doing that stuff, and he's like, oh yeah, we're doing the same stuff. He's like, actually, we have an opening on the team. Would you want to apply? I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. Because I was kind of getting bored, and the university was not paying very well.
Yeah.
To like, we wanted to start a family and all this stuff. Like, actually, not at that point. We had my first son. I'm like, hey, my bank account's going down, and
Yeah.
I remember walking to my boss's office at the university. I'm like, hey, I need you to pay me more money, or I have to leave. And he is like, you have to leave. I don't have any more budget for you. He's like, yeah, I think you do good work, but like, I can't pay you more money. And I'm like, cool. I'll go look for stuff. And so, it happened that year or whatever. They said they had an opening. I was the first. They had expanded the team to 4 people. They were 3 people for the longest time. They expanded it to 4 people. I was the first new hire on that team. I think it was in 13 years.
Wow.
Those people had been there for 13 years. On like at the low end. Like one of the guys had been there for like 20 something years. And it's just like, this is like, the amount of just like information that they know in their heads of how things work is just next level. Like I was so hard. There was no documentation. There was not a lot of stuff. It was a fantastic, experience. Like, cause
Yeah.
I got in again, I didn't know anything about animation. I didn't know anything about these systems. A lot of the tools looked familiar to what I was doing before. They were trying to implement a VDI like environment for their artists. I'm like, cool, I have VDI experience. Obviously not Zen Desktop, but a similar sort of like, how do we virtualize this? But they had Puppet for config management. I'm like, cool, I'm Puppet certified. I took that course. I know how this works. They used it very much not the way that I knew how it worked. So like learning those sorts of things. And then just like in general, the entire studio was Linux based. And like, wait, you don't have Active Directory? How do people, well, yeah, we have an LDAP server. I'm like, oh, where's storage? Like it's NFS. Of course it's NFS. Why wouldn't it be NFS? Like, oh, people use NFS? Like I thought that was just like a really weird bespoke. No one did that anymore. Like all these things that I didn't know were people were using in real life. Like they're, oh yeah, no, we use all this stuff because it was Linux through and through. All of the artist desktops, all of the anything that wasn't portable was Linux.
Yeah.
Right? Like every server, everything. And so I was like, great. So I was on the Linux team for 3-ish years, and they moved me into like a core team, partially because the Kubernetes stuff, partially because of other things I was doing there. But it was just like, it was fascinating. People are like, what do you do? I'm like, I work on computers for most of the year, and then once a year I get dressed up in a suit and I go watch a cartoon. The entire studio, we go to like a premiere and we'd watch the thing that we all made together. And it was the most, it was the coolest party, all hands party you could ever have. Because like, hey, we've all been working really hard on this, and everyone had a part. And you could just go and you literally see the fruits of your labor on like a big screen, and you're in a credit. Like it's like a fascinating, like these movie credits are like, we actually gave credit to everyone here. Everyone in this room,
so
you're on this screen right now. And I'm like, that is amazing. But the end of the day, we were making box software. Like the thing we made was an asset that went on a DVD that went and played in someone's DVD player. It literally, Blu-ray players have Java interpreters on it. Like they run Java software, that we were making box software. And the fascinating thing to me on that was like running systems for like a box software environment was like, we would build something, we would complete it, and then we'd move to the next project. And we would just do that over and over again. And there's, 2 or 3 movies in process, but only one coming out a year basically. Yeah. And we're like, hey, that project's done. Archive the stuff, move to the next one, right? Yeah. Like start creating the next environment sort of thing. And so I'm usually working like 2 or 3 movies ahead of where like the releases are coming out. And so it was just fascinating being in that environment of like, wow, this is really cool. And obviously really cool stuff that you have privilege of being at like a big name animation studio where like actors in the building and bands would come and play like randomly, and they'd have parties and whatnot. Like really cool. I know a lot of that doesn't happen anymore. Lots of budget cuts. Animation industries kind of in question with with current technologies and AI and whatnot. And then just like COVID decimated movie studios for a while. Like all of the like the revenue streams that made it economical to have those parties all went away. But I switched from Disney Animation to Disney Plus in 2018, which was my first remote job because I had a second child, and Disney Animation's in Burbank, and I was driving from Burbank to where I live, which was about 40 miles away, and I was spending 3 to 4 hours a day on the road.
Ouch.
Yeah, and I was like, when I went back from paternity leave, the week I went back, I was driving more than I was sleeping at night.
Oh my God.
I was like, this isn't healthy. Like I can't do this anymore. And I had struggled with, management and trying to push some people forward to do things in a more, what I thought was advanced sort of Kubernetes, cloud native sort of way. They were pretty reluctant on a lot of those things because like this stuff works. We don't have either budget. We don't want to retrain people. There's a lot of reasons it wasn't going to work. So I couldn't work in a cloud environment. I couldn't do things that I really wanted to. So I'm like, it's time to move somewhere else. I heard about this Disney. It wasn't even called Disney Plus at the time. It was just like a streaming service that we were going to build. They bought a startup called BAMTech Media. It was a fully remote gig, and it was all in the cloud. And I'm like, cool.
Nice.
You know, I get to be home with my kids. I don't have to drive all the time, and I get to, you know, work and advance my career in the areas that I wanted to. And so I was there, like when I started December of 2018, they announced like, hey, this is going to ship November of 2019. I'm like, oh. I was like, we didn't know that until I started. Like we had 1 year. They're like, this can't fail. Like this is literally the company is writing on this. Like this cannot fail. And I was like, I have never run a production cloud system in my life before I started there.
So this was like all new, like the whole cloud native ecosystem was stuff you wanted to get into, but had not until you.
I wrote the book with Chris in 2017, the cloud native infrastructure. But that was for me was an aspirational theoretical book. I interviewed a lot of companies and I said, this is how they do it. And this is how Kubernetes does it. But I personally was not running production systems in the cloud. I played with it a bunch, you know, trying stuff and whatnot, but like I was never on call for anything in any cloud up until that point of working at Disney Plus. And I I started at Disney Plus, and they, as a startup, they had a bunch of customers. They ran streaming services for a lot of people. They ran streaming services for HBO, for MLB, for NHL. It was mostly live stuff, but there was also on-demand things. Like the original Twitter live streaming, not Periscope, but the thing before it. Like all that stuff was on the BAMTech media stack. And so I show up on the first day and they're like, okay, here's the 18 customers we have. You can't let their environments are live. Like they have customers using this stuff. Like it's going, and also we're building Disney Plus for next year. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
oh geez.
I did not know. I was like, yeah, I was like, okay, I'm jumping in the deep end. And then within the first 2 weeks I started there, 2 people quit on my team.
Oh my God.
So it went from 4 people to 2.
Oh God.
Before I was on board, I was like, okay, we have to ship this thing. It cannot. That's stressful. And so it was a fascinating year of stress.
Wow.
But
working from home.
Working from home, I was not driving. I did go. They were based in New York, so I went to New York once in that trip. I went to London once as well. Cool. Because they had Manchester teams and London teams. But yeah, that was like, it was fascinating. I loved it. I left after the UK launch, which would have been in 2020 or 2020, because that's when I started at Amazon. So it was a fascinating environment, just like seeing what they built, how they built it on such a scrappy sort of team. The team that was building it was like 4 people. It was all on AWS and ECS, no Kubernetes. No, and like, and I was all like, oh, I've never used ECS. Like, what does this look like? And it doesn't matter because our usage of ECS was not a traditional ECS usage. So it was like, yeah, no, you have to learn our stack anyway. We built all these platform stuff on top of it, so it's not like traditional stuff. And so,
oh geez.
But I was managing the like observability stack of it,
cool.
and the infrastructure side of it. So we were provisioning clusters, managing access, integrating with the deployments and CI teams, and then we had deployed Datadog for monitoring and alerting and logging, like just a few months before Disney Plus.
Oh damn! Wow. And were you? Correct me if I'm wrong. Were you also like you had been at one point like a cloud native ambassador?
Yeah. Yeah, that was. I mean, I was at Disney Animation when they like invited me, like they were starting the program, nice. But they're like, hey, you're writing a book about this. You've done some stuff. I wasn't contributing code. I was mostly doing like documentation and then like external like education stuff.
Right.
So they invited me as that, and like cool. I didn't know what that meant. I've never been an ambassador for something. Use that. I mostly use that for travel budget because Disney Animation would not pay for me to go to conferences. So anytime I was going to KubeCon, I would have to take vacation time, and the CNCF, because I was an ambassador, would pay for my travel.
Oh, nice.
So that was cool. Like how I went to KubeCons for a while. Yeah. And it was just like, oh, like I don't have a budget for this, and work's not paying for me. I know it's a big name. I know they have money, but they're not giving it for this. And so I had to find other ways to be part of the community to be able to like just show up. And that was always I need to do that. Working at Amazon, I didn't need that anymore. I think I stopped being an ambassador when I was at Disney Plus. Partially because I wasn't using Kubernetes anymore.
Gotcha.
I didn't. That year was just stressful. Of like I wasn't creating a lot of content or writing, doing stuff to like really engage in the community. And so I was like, okay, now I need to figure out what else to do. And then after leaving Disney Plus, I went to Amazon because they're like, hey,
Yeah.
you run a big ECS infrastructure on containers. Would
Yeah.
you like to come help people learn how to do that too? I'm like, yeah, actually, that sounds great.
That's cool. And so that was like, I guess, a more official advocacy role compared to what you were doing at Disney Plus,
Yeah, all
which
my Disney titles and jobs were engineer. I was a
gotcha.
systems
Gotcha.
engineer. I think my title at Disney Plus was like super long. It was like as an SRE. I was like platform engineer SRE for Linux systems on something. I don't know. It was like a
Yeah.
super long title, but I checked all the bingo boxes on that one. I think I didn't have DevOps in my title, but I had everything else.
Nice, nice. And
Yeah.
but yeah, you did a bunch of like basically advocacy work on the side, just kind of for
Yeah,
funding.
I still wanted to like
Yeah.
I still liked Kubernetes. I still
Yeah, yeah.
liked it as like an ecosystem,
Yeah.
and I definitely better than ECS.
Yeah.
Even at the time, like ECS solved a lot of problems, and I still to
Yeah.
this day give it credit for Disney Plus would have failed if we tried to put Kubernetes in place in the short period of time we had, because we didn't have people to run it. We didn't
Yeah.
have the infrastructure and expertise and all the integrations and stuff like that. Like ECS scaled beautifully for us on launch day, which was 10 million signups in a single day, and it was just like, yeah, no, this would not have been successful any other way, I don't think. And it worked, and I learned a lot about ECS. Even in my time at Amazon,
Yeah.
when I was part of the container team, I talked more people out of using Kubernetes than people into Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'm like, actually, you're a team of 2 people, you probably want ECS.
Right.
You should
Right.
just go use that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, here's why.
Yeah.
And like I had the experience, the production experience of like, this is why, this is where it's
Yeah.
good, this is where it's bad. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think it's important to have those conversations because I think it's so easy for organizations to get caught up in the shiny new thing. It's like, oh, everyone's using Kubernetes. I too shall use Kubernetes, and it's like,
Right.
well,
Yeah.
maybe
No,
not.
and I think to this day, I don't know for sure, but I think Disney Plus is moving to Kubernetes or has
Uh
moved
huh.
partially to Kubernetes, because I know Hulu was a big Kubernetes shop, and
Mm,
Hulu and Disney Plus are now much more entwined in management and infrastructure and cost savings sort of stuff. So
yeah.
I believe they might be using it now, but it's still
Yeah.
like there's a lot of legacy stuff that has been built for a long time that isn't going away anytime soon. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. And after you, and then you left Amazon or you left AWS semi recently, right? And what's your role now?
Yeah. So at AWS, I was actually building a lot of on-prem stuff, which was
Uh huh.
weird. Like I was building EKS Anywhere with the team. Like we were planning that out, and I still really liked the data center
Yeah.
on-prem Kubernetes space, because that's what I was originally kind of got into the space at Disney Animation, and Disney Plus. I didn't do any of that, and then I kind of got back into it at Amazon, and I was like, wow, I still like this. Like I still think there's a lot of value, and a lot of people can have benefits here.
Yeah.
And Kubernetes as that like layer for on top of bare metal, it makes a lot more sense than something like maybe a VMware.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had been a VMware admin in the past, right? Like, it's like I've used a lot of stuff on prem, and so I had stayed in touch with Andrew Reinhard, who is the founder of Talos Linux, and he created it while I was at Disney Animation. I was running Kubernetes clusters on CoreOS, and he built like this new way of thinking about it. It's like, what if
Yeah.
you don't have SSH? What if you don't have a traditional Linux distro? What if everything's an API?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's impossible. You can't do that. But like, I stayed in touch with him. I kept trying it. I kept playing with it in different areas, and it kept progressing. I kind of stayed in touch. And then while I was at Amazon, like we were building stuff competing directly with it. Bottle Rocket was directly to compete with Talos Linux,
Mm-hmm.
and EKS Anywhere wasn't to compete with, but it was at the same time Sidero was building Sidero Metal, which was like the exact same ideas of like,
Yeah.
oh, we could build this on-prem Kubernetes management stuff, and so they were disbanding the EKS Anywhere team. It kind of was a failure, like not a lot going on. No real customers, no big, like all the things they thought might happen weren't happening. And
Yeah.
they're like, actually, this is like really expensive to maintain. So
Yeah.
we're just kind of like, everyone go somewhere else, and kind of spread the team out various places and put it in maintenance mode.
Mm.
At least that's my opinion of it. I won't say that's official because I'm not gonna speak poorly of, like, I think that the team was great, but like the management was just like, we don't actually want to be in this business, sort of thing. And so I don't know what the state of it is now, but all of my friends, or most of my friends, don't work on it anymore. All the people that I worked with, that I'm like, hey, this was great, good times, right? Like, yeah, I stopped working on that years ago. I'm like, yeah, me too. But Sidero was still like, no, this is still valuable. Like there's still this space here that people
Yeah.
aren't in the cloud. Not everything's running to the cloud. There's still this really good Kubernetes story of like, how do we make this better? And Talos Linux as like a different way of managing Linux was just fascinating to me. Of I don't SSH, I don't run config management. I just have an API, and that includes installing and formatting disks. And I'm like, how do you combine all of those tools, all those config files, all those things I've learned for the last 20 years into a single API? And they're like, actually, if we have a single use case, it's really easy. Because we're just like, we just don't do all of the complicated things. We
Yeah.
just do one. We just say, it's just Kubernetes. I'm like, okay. And so I was talking to Andrew. I'm like, hey, like, how's it going over there? Like, what do you have customers? Like, how's it adoption? Still a startup, still pretty small. This is my first startup. This was the first time I ever went to like a small company,
Right.
and I was like nervous about it, but also like Amazon was kind of was burned into the ground. Like how do I get off this sinking ship fast too? And so Andrew and I, like, again, we had been talking for 6 years. We just
Yeah.
casually, occasionally, like, hey, how's it going? What's going on? And so like I felt
Cool.
like I knew him really well. I knew what they were trying to do, and I was like, what would it look like for me over there? And Andrew actually he did try to hire me when I left Disney Animation and when I left Disney Plus. He in both
Oh,
times he reached out because I'd like announced it online, and he's like,
yeah.
hey, by the way, would you be interested in coming here? And
Yeah.
in both cases, I was like, I have a second kid. I was like, I need a bunch of money. I was like, how much, what are you paying? What are the roles? What does it look like? He's like, we're still small. We probably can't do that. I'm like, okay, Amazon's going to pay me like all the money in the world. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
go there for a while. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, just, and at the point I was like, I think I can really have an impact on a product and an industry in a different way
Yeah.
than being at a giant company that has this influence and this
Yeah.
broad, reach, but also just like change the story. Just like,
Yeah.
what would it look like if all this looked different?
Yeah.
And the more I used Talos, the more I was like, this needs to exist in the world, whether Sidero is successful or not. API driven Linux needs to be in the world, because it is like everything I've done in my 20 plus years of using Linux just gets so much easier if we have single purpose API driven Linux distributions. And so I was like, this really needs to be successful in a
Yeah.
variety of ways. And that means commercially successful to be sustainable, but then
Yeah.
also, just like it pushed the boundaries of what everyone thinks. When you think of a Linux server, you're like,
Yeah.
I gotta do a bunch of stuff. I gotta learn a bunch of man pages and all this stuff. Like, no. Like it's a different story today.
Yeah.
And that includes setting up and maintenance side of things. So I've been really excited. And I started as like a DevRel person, doing
Yeah.
content for them, because they had a lot of really cool stuff that they didn't
Yeah.
tell anyone about. And
Right. Right.
I was like, I need to relearn this. So you need to
Yeah.
tell people about this thing, because this is
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I kept like, I want to relearn this. I'm going to make a video about it. I'm like, great. So
Yeah.
I just was like, I think every week I made some form of content, whether it was a conference talk, a blog post, a video, something. I was like,
Nice.
open source project, whatever. I'm like, I just need to tell people
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
stuff is cool. Like
Yeah.
I have not been blown away by a Linux distro for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so I was relearning it, and then now I moved into a product role. So it's like I've been doing that, but also like, how do I have more impact on like the actual implementation, the roadmap, the
Right.
where I think the pain points are for customers,
Yeah.
and talking to a lot of customers and partners, because Linux doesn't exist in a vacuum. Linux is still
Yeah.
like this integrated system, just like Kubernetes. You have a bunch of tools, and there's other hardware and ecosystem stuff that you have to integrate with. And so figuring out like where that's painful, where people want to run this, where people are, what they're trying to do with it,
Yeah.
what access do they need, because Linux is a very big, complicated system, right? And people think
Yeah.
Kubernetes is a big, complicated system.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's built on another really big, complicated system. The only difference is people have like boiled down Linux into the thing that makes like Linux side of it like, oh, just don't look there, right? Like, you don't have to look at that side, because
Yeah.
that's too complicated.
Yeah.
And you just hide the things that you don't really need. And Kubernetes is kind of getting there, where they're like, oh,
Yeah.
don't look at etcd. You don't need to look at the database. It's fine. We'll manage it for you, kind of thing. And so like Kubernetes is kind of getting there, where like it's settling down. It's getting a little more boring. It's getting a little more stable. People understand it a little more. But the underlying, like, how do we make Linux just more secure, faster, easier to run places, not just for Kubernetes? Like, what would Linux look like for a non-Kubernetes distro that's API driven? Like, what if I wanted a storage system or a load balancer or something else? Like, all of those things, all of those storage, NetApp and Portworx and F5s and all these, they're all Linux systems.
Yeah.
They all just have some proprietary API interface on top of it. I'm like, what if that was all open? What if we just could do that and democratize that side of things, and saying, hey, instead of the Zscaler, API, we have a common API that you can use, that Kubernetes did for containers and orchestration,
Yeah.
you could actually do that for a lot of other components, and it makes running a cloud like environment easier, right? Because you go to Amazon, you go to AWS, you have one load balancer choice, right? Like they have one proprietary API like they integrate with. You want to run into your own load balancer? Good luck. Right? Go run some EC2 instances and build something, whatever. People do that sometimes, but not generally. But if you had that a simpler API that was easier to maintain and manage and deploy for various use cases,
Hmm.
I'm really excited about that. Like I think that's so cool as a longtime Linux nerd,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
knowing that like all of this stuff can be possible and it's not actually outside of scope of what people can do.
Yeah.
We just built the underlying system right now is so complicated because it does everything. And when you have
Yeah.
a general purpose thing and you say I want to do one thing with it, it makes it really hard to like boil that down and secure it in certain ways and maintain it.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Now you've got me. You've piqued my interest. So I'm definitely going to be reading up more on Talos. That's so cool. We're coming up on time, but before we wrap up, I was wondering if you had any either words of wisdom or spicy takes for our audience.
Oh, that's too many. We're at time. So um, I will say, at least my career has been, I think it's been mostly successful because I've invested in myself
Yeah.
in various ways over and over again. And if I had the time, I spent the time to learn how to do something, to keep things on my own platform, put things on my blog posts, on my domain, on my websites when possible, right? And I often tell people I had Bitcoin way back in the day. Way back when Bitcoin started, I bought Bitcoin. I got it for 2 birthdays. I spent $100 each time. I had $225 in Bitcoin. It crashed. It came back up. I ended up selling it for like $300. And was like, aren't you sad you sold all your Bitcoin? Like, hell no. I sold it and I bought a home lab to learn Kubernetes. And the return on investment on me learning Kubernetes in depth on hardware got me multiple well-paying jobs. And it got me friends that I would have never got with Bitcoin. Like it's like the amount of doors that opened because I invested in myself in those
Yeah.
areas and knew that like actually I could hold on to this till it goes to the moon and I could get tens of thousands of dollars from it. You know what? Every time I left the company, at least it going like to Disney and Amazon, I doubled my pay.
Yeah.
And like
That's awesome.
that's a return on investment that
That's
like you
amazing.
can't get from other places, right? Like that's
Yeah.
just I learned the skill set to be valuable to a business to say like, hey, what do you want to do? What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
Cool, I'm gonna learn that skill set and I'm gonna invest in myself. And then even if you don't hire me, I now own that skill set. I know how to do that thing. I change my own oil still today. Right? Like I know how to do that.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me. And it like does it take some time? Yeah. Could I pay someone to do it? Sure. I also lets me disconnect and I'm
Yeah.
offline for a little while to go change my oil, and that's okay too. So investing in myself, and like if you are getting started or trying to do something, like take the time to slow down and invest in yourself to learn the way you want to learn, put things on your own, things you control, your own domain, your own website, your own, file server, whatever it is. Like learn how to do this stuff yourself to take some ownership and responsibility, because that's the biggest investment that pays off over time. We only get the one life and you only here for so long, and like it doesn't matter like if you made more money with some investment or just like just figure out where to spend the time and
Yeah.
hopefully spend it on yourself and enrich yourself, your friends, your family, people around you.
Oh, that is such great advice. I love that so much. Well, thank you, Justin, for geeking out with me today. And y'all don't forget to subscribe and be sure to check the show notes for additional resources and to connect with us and our guests on social media. Until next time.
Peace out and geek out.
Geeking Out is hosted and produced by me, Adriana Vilela. I also compose and perform the theme music on my trusty clarinet. Geeking Out is also produced by my daughter, Hannah Maxwell, who incidentally designed all of the cool graphics. Be sure to follow us on all the socials by going to bio.site/geekingout.